Welcome back to Angel Bread Stories. I'm Brad, the man behind the writing and the sultry baritones. Before we start, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill. And if you'd like to be part of the community, we have a Discord server linked in the description below. But without further ado, sit back, take a deep breath, and relax. And I hope you enjoy the video. Hi guys, welcome to a reading of the prologue of the Dark Prince novelization that I did for my dissertation at uni, or as I called it, creative project. So I have the prologue and the first 3 chapters done. And I'm going to be reading the prologue for you today. I was planning on these being like maybe a little fireplace ambience in the background, but it's really, really warm right now. I'm recording this in the middle of British summer, and for those of you that have endured British summer, you'll know that it's ridiculously hot. For no good reason. Despite the fact that I am half Thai, and when I'm in Thailand at temperatures higher than this and a humidity higher than this, I'm perfectly fine. For some reason, while I'm here in Britain, it feels like I'm being put in an oven. So, I'm not in the mood for a fireplace. I'm really not. You know what I want? Rain. I might put rain ambience on this one, I think. Editor Brad, you put the rain on for me, please. But without further ado, let's get into it. So like I said, this is the prologue for the novel adaptation of The Dark Prince, now called Shadows of Heaven, The Last Ascendant. Prologue. The Lonely Angel. The decimation engine, minutes after the war in heaven. There was nothing but smothering silence, save perhaps the perfidious cackling of the cruel fates. Silence was a sensation he had become estranged from, a lost friend, one of the few things that could still remind him of a life now shattered. Back then, it was accompanied by the sweet scent of mother's cooking, and the misted white of the cloud-breath ravens as they landed to bask in dawn's rising embrace, the sun's tender kiss imparting cozy tranquility, a peaceful silence, a moment of serenity before the beginnings of mellow birdsong. Now, it made its return along with the stink of acrid smoke and pungent flesh, misted white replaced by a sea of ceaseless crimson, marked with mounds of silver. In the place of rising dawn was the sinking dusk of this accursed day's last, laboured breaths. Moonlight seeped in with each passing moment he stood there, washing over the bed of corpses in lapping waves. Armour glimmered and blood shone under the moon's pale judgment, its leering gaze casting down upon a world that, for the first moment in years, stood still. It was over. After untold losses, countless retreats, and the unspoken sacrifices of already long forgotten souls, silence had fallen. But it did not bring peace, nor joy, or relief. No sliver of any such thing touched his heart, although something did. Something he struggled to recognize, an emotion that he had buried deep long ago at the outset of this bitter war. Moonlight flowed into the bright, cold blue of his eyes like waves from a tempest. He stared out onto the battlefield, knowing it would be futile to avert his gaze. This sight, like the countless battlefields that came before it, would haunt his nightmares for centuries to come. His grip on Gleam Blade tightened, blood still dripping from the blade's edge, a gentle but firm rhythm. like the beating of a heart, one that was slowly fading into the embrace of death. The air grew cold as a gush of wind slithered its way along his cheek, a small cut stinging in recoiling response. A tentative clink of buckles and armor plates finally broke the stale silence as he stepped out from the engulfing shadow of the decimation engine. Its unnatural crystalline structure loomed over him, lines of inky red still dancing underneath the glass-like skin. Turning to look back inside the engine, he stared blankly at the terrible cost he had just paid, before returning his eyes ahead, taking a last glance at the man who once called him brother, whose long raven hair flowed with the breeze as he lumbered through the dead towards the edge of the battlefield, his shadow growing longer behind him as he walked towards the setting sun, dragging his spear behind him. I wish I could tell you the truth, but I'm not sure you'd forgive me for that either. At least this way, I can keep you safe. The words barely escaped his lips, a muttering quickly swept up by even the dancing of bitter winds. Finally, he attempted to turn away from the sight before him, but that feeling steadied his scanning eyes upon the scene of his making. Piles of corpses, thousands of lives sacrificed for victory, left to rot. For there was not enough left to bury them. So many lost, and yet, as always, he lived. Even as those around him were swept away in the hurricane of clashing blades and claws, he lived, despite his belief he had no right to. His eyes darted from one lifeless face to another as he began to wade his way through the corpses. He followed the scars his light magic had left on the earth towards the epicenter of destruction, past the jagged shards of chaos magic, driven into the ground by the force of impact, past the shredded mounds of flesh that were the mortals who leapt to his side, as he fought the fallen divine. He found the fallen divine's body, ochre eyes wide with lifeless accusation, amongst the shattered crystals that formed a failed, final defense. Standing above the body, he cast his sullen gaze upon the gaping wound Gleamblade had left in the body, fracturing bone as it had plunged its way to his heart. "You left me no choice," he muttered, staring into empty eyes. He paused, as if part of him expected a response to form upon those pale lips. What did I do wrong? Why did you become this, brother? Even after all these years, despite who his brother had become, in his eyes, he was still a boy. The same boy he carried away from the clutches of their father, who grew up quiet, kind, and thoughtful, with a mind that could piece the world together in ways no one else could. He knelt beside his brother, examining the shards of chaos magic that had begun to fuse the flesh of his brother's right hand. He swept strands of dark vermilion hair from the face of this boy turned slaughterer. Taking his brother's left hand, he ran his thumb over the ring their mother had gifted him. "I promised her," he choked on his words. "I'd keep you safe." He slipped the ring from his brother's cold finger, sliding it upon one of his own. "I failed her. I failed you." He peered towards the distant figure of his still living brother. "I have failed everyone." He clutched his brother's hand, contemplating, as he had hundreds of times before, everything he would do differently if he could. "If I saw the signs, if I acted earlier, maybe..." His grip tightened. "If I had just been better, then maybe you'd still be here. Maybe I'd still have a home to take you back to." He rose to his feet, relinquishing his brother's hand, his eyes scanning the earth around them. All the color had been leached from the land, leaving swaths of sickly grey and lifeless amber. He watched as shards of chaos magic bled corruption into the soil. His home was gone. Even if it weren't a wasteland, even if there were enough of them left, the divines didn't deserve to rebuild. They were meant to protect the mortals. Instead, they dragged them into war. His eyes shifted towards the setting sun, the silhouette of his remaining brother beginning to blur. He looked back at the fallen divine's vacant expression. This is the end of the divines. Is that your plan? To show us our own failures? He said solemnly, his voice wavering. Because I see mine, brother. I could have stopped this. That's when it struck him. When it finally made itself known, that lingering feeling, one that lurked in the depths of his soul, patiently waiting for the right moment to encompass his mind and plunge his soul into the same abyss from whence it struck. And in the moment that his mind drowned, as his eyes began to glisten with tears, he recognized it. Guilt. The guilt that the people here all died in his name, for his cause, for his mistakes. He forced himself to look because he dared not allow himself to forget, to ensure that this image haunted his every waking moment and clawed at the fabric of his nightmares. As a single tear dropped from welled eyes, glistening under the cold moon and uncaring stars, he finally looked away. Gleam blade clattered to the ground as his grip faltered. For the first time in 2 centuries, he felt his hands shake. He grappled with the straps of his armor as his chest grew tighter. I can't, he choked up. Hands desperately shed his armor as his breath grew rapid. Once free, he collapsed to his knees, nails digging into the dirt. Tears struck the ground at an increasing rhythm, breaking the silence with its woeful cadence. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He unleashed a single scream upon the empty battlefield, his head lifted high, his eyes meeting the apathetic stars. Why me? His eyes fell upon his bloodied hands. Why am I still alive? His gaze turned towards his dab, his chest settling into a deep breath. The tears stopped. His eyes glazed over as he unsheathed the dagger, guiding the tip to his chest. Closing his eyes, he cast his thoughts back, 14 years ago, to before the war, the ritual of ascension. He stood with his brothers. His cheeks ached from smiling. His chest was warm with pride. The custodian gave a heartfelt speech that almost brought him to tears. The Council of Ascendants lauded how he and his brothers had made history. All 3 passing the custodian's tests, all 3 permitted to ascend, all 3 succeeding. After all they had endured, there they stood, elevated from divines to divine ascendants. This was meant to be a new beginning, life finally settling into something worth living. Within months, that life lay in ruins. His eyes remained shut as he took a deep breath, his grip on the dagger tightening, ready to drive its way to his heart. But again, the guilt stopped him. Of course, he said, opening his eyes. That's why. He threw his dab aside and rose to his feet, looking ahead. The distant figure, having escaped the edges of the battlefield, was almost out of view. Darkness closing in as the last rays of sunlight burned on the horizon. He turned in the opposite direction and began to walk away. He would live as punishment for his failures. He would bear the crushing weight of his guilt for as long as he lived on this world. It seemed only fitting. All he wished for now was oblivion. To meet those he lost in the next life. To seek their forgiveness. He just wanted peace. So, he would grant himself none. He had saved the world. But with one last glance behind him, the sun taking its last gasps, clawing at the sky as the day was suffocated into night, he found himself thinking he had not saved enough of it. And that concludes the prologue of Shadows of Heaven, The Last Ascendant. I have videos of the earlier drafts of this up, and I'm reading them in this style. And it's mostly the same, it's pretty similar, but I've made some adjustments to adding a little more action and a little more dialogue into it, using some of the things I've learned over my time doing my writing course at uni. And please tell me your thoughts. This is my, by all technicality, the first proper piece of writing I'm publishing into the outside world since finishing uni. So hopefully the 3 years were worth it. Hopefully I've actually improved, and hopefully you guys think that. Or otherwise, I've wasted a lot of money. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really liked writing it, and I cannot wait to share with you chapter 1, 2, and 3, because we start to get into Karis, and Samael, we start to build up some of the threat around Samael. Actually, if you guys want to hear me talk a little bit about the prologue, stick around. If not, you can end the video now. But I really wanted this prologue. I don't know why. I feel like it set the tone. Because at the end of the day, it's interesting because at the end of the day, actually, Shadows of Heaven is a story, is a positive story at the end of the day, because it is about these people learning to heal from the trauma that was inflicted upon them by the war. It's literally a collective of the survivors of the war in heaven learning how to heal from it 1,000 years after it happened. And despite that, it does have its dark moments. A lot of it is very depressing. A lot of it is based around trauma. So I think that's why I really wanted this prologue, because this focuses entirely on Michael's trauma, and it sets up a lot of mystery, because I don't name Michael Samael as Azrael. If you're an eagle-eyed reader, or a keen listener in this case, going through, you will notice the similarities between how I've described Samael in this to how I described Samael in chapter 2 and 3. So there's a lot of little hints. Obviously, I'm creating this with a bunch of people who already know a lot of the lore and a lot of what is similar to what the story of the book will be. I'm basically keeping the story almost identical. I'm just changing a few more bits to make it, one, better as a story, because I'm hopefully a better writer now, and also to make it make more sense for a novel. And also I can do a little more with the narrative now it's a novel, because I was constrained by it being audio and me having to voice everything meant that I had to keep. Also, I kept everything to Karis's POV, but now I can do a few things with the story, like I want to have scenes with Ilian before we actually meet him again, in this mysterious style of not really revealing who he is, and then it all kind of comes together by the end of the book. So I think for Shadows of Heaven, The Last Ascendant, so I'm going to explain it again, because I've only ever said it once, so I'm not one of those arrogant people who thinks everyone's going to understand my grand creative ideas as soon as I say them. The franchise, or the universe, I don't know what you want to call it, I say the universe, but the universe is called Shadows of Heaven. This book in particular is called The Last Ascendant, so that's why the whole title is Shadows of Heaven, The Last Ascendant. So the last Ascendant, I think, in terms of if I actually wrote this as a whole book, which I hope to, it would end at the I'm trying to think of the name of the episodes. The Ritual and the Ascension. Is that what it's called? The Armory, the Ritual. No, the Armory, the Altar, the Ritual. There you go. God, I can't even remember my own work anymore. It was years ago, guys. Okay, it was years. I'm old. So it would end around there because I think that's actually a really good point narratively to end, because I don't know if you guys remember watching it, but like it felt like it was a culmination of everything. Like we finally see Zazrael, we finally have a battle, we finally have unlocking the mystery of who Karis is and who he really is and what happened to him and blah blah blah, and who's Ilian and what are all these dreams that are happening. And so I think it's a really natural conclusion for a book. And then the second book would be some of the episodes that are already out, plus everything up until the end of the first War in Heaven. No, Second War in Heaven, sorry. The Second War in Heaven saga. Which obviously I won't tell you how that ends because it's not even out on the audio drama versions yet. So I've had those in my head for years. Can't wait to write those, either as a book or as the audios. But anyway, enough rambling about my work because I'm sure most of you have dropped off. Thank you to like the 10, maybe, people that stuck around to hear me talk aimlessly and completely unscripted about my prologue. I hope I didn't lose you immediately and maybe even retained you for 1 minute, because that would be an achievement for me. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you like it. Please like, comment, subscribe, especially comment. Please comment, tell me what you thought. Even if it was, I hated everything about it, please tell me that, because if I do actually want to publish this, I need feedback. And also, I can show any potential agents that, I already have a following for this book. Ooh la 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 la. So, comment, please. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Before this video ends, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the disciples of Jesus Christ who support me over on Patreon. If you'd like to join them, check out the links in the description. But with that done, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.